We now have a massive clue about what Apple's dropping early next year, and it's total budget chaos. According to a research report from Jeff Pu, Apple's preparing to launch new entry-level devices across the iPhone, iPad and Mac categories in early 2026, specifically in the spring around March or April time. And yes, the star of that group is the long-rumoured affordable MacBook. A colourful little laptop running an A-series chipset that was originally designed for iPhones. Pu says this thing will actually use the A18 Pro chipset from the iPhone 16 Pro, pack a 13-inch display, and come in silver, blue, pink, and yellow. Basically the iPad colour palette, but in laptop form. To hit that rumoured $599 to $699 price point, Apple may make a few cuts like an older design, a basic display, 8 gigs of RAM, or even just a single Type-C port, typical Apple behaviour. And to make things even busier, Apple is also planning to launch the iPhone 17e and top generation iPad in the same window. Get your wallets ready, people! Anyway, back to the MacBook, because that's the one everyone's been talking about, and well, this Mac releasing next year isn't exactly breaking news. Apple has essentially confirmed that 2025 is done for Macs. During their latest earnings call, CFO Kevin Parrott casually mentioned that Mac revenue in Q4 isn't expected to grow much, partly because there are fewer Macs left to ship. So if anyone was waiting for a surprise Mac under their Christmas tree, Santa Tim says no. Sorry guys. The update last month, the base 14-inch MacBook Pro with the M5, was pretty much it for 2025, which to be fair tracks. I never expected the $599 MacBook to drop in November. If it was happening this year, it would have launched alongside the 14-inch Pro in October. The far more realistic launch window has always been spring 2026, probably right next to the M5 MacBook Air as a neat little low-cost deal. So let's now dig into what we know about the entry-level MacBook now that Jeff Pu's reports has supercharged the whole picture. Back in June, Min-Chiu Kuo first revealed that Apple was working on a more affordable 13-inch laptop aimed at competing with Chromebooks, and the twist, as Pu just reaffirmed in his reports, is that it won't use an M-series chipset like the rest of the Mac range. Instead, it'll be powered by the A18 Pro, the same one used in the iPhone 16 Pro. On paper, that may sound like a downgrade. Why is Apple putting an iPhone chip in a computer? But actually zoom out and this makes sense. The A18 Pro is around 40% slower than the M4, but its multi-core CPU performance is roughly on par with the original M1 MacBook Air, which, by the way, can still handle 4K video editing and everything students or office workers do daily. So for the audience Apple's targeting, students, first-time buyers, casual users, this thing is absolutely fine. Basically, it's a laptop that won't make you cry if you open 10 browser tabs. And the price, DigiTimes earlier estimated somewhere between $599 and $699 for the base model. Pu now puts that range slightly higher at up to $899, but the core point remains. Apple is stepping into genuine budget laptop territory, a sub $700 MacBook directly competing with Chromebooks, which basically rule US education because they're cheap and good enough. But Apple's advantage is obvious: full macOS, multi-year updates, solid build quality, and actual performance. Try playing Fortnite on a bloody Chromebook. Before we go any further, if you're into this kind of Apple news, make sure you hit subscribe and tap the hype button as well. It really helps a small channel like mine, and you won't miss any of my breakdowns on what's coming next. Right, design. So as I mentioned, Pu mentions colours like silver, blue, pink and yellow, which, yes, are the same colour palette as the base iPads. This reinforces earlier rumours that this MacBook is meant to feel fun, lightweight, and very student-friendly. Basically, it's a laptop that says, I do your homework, but I also like to look good doing it. And here's an extra nugget from Gurman: the display might actually be slightly smaller than the 13.6-inch panel on the current MacBook Air. That could mean Apple recycles the 13.3-inch panel from the M1 MacBook Air, or less likely, the 13-inch LCD panel from the iPad Air without the touch layer. Between the two, the M1 Air panel seems far more likely, already macOS ready, proven, and cheaper than developing something new. Apple still actually technically sells the M1 MacBook Air through Walmart, I believe, in the US, so they're still producing these, and so they can just bring over those panels for this cheaper MacBook. A slightly smaller tried and tested panel also helps Apple keep costs down while maintaining a solid experience. And because Apple's already been mass producing A18 Pro chipsets for iPhones, this saves them from keeping old chip lines alive. That's peak Tim Cook energy. Scale up one chip, use it everywhere, and then reduce costs across the boards. This man is a supply genius. Now about those compromises, and more specifically RAM, because that could be the one everyone debates about. The A18 series IMC, the integrated memory controller, is only designed to support up to 8 gigs of RAM. On an iPhone, no problem. On macOS, usable but not ideal, especially with Apple Intelligence becoming a bigger part of macOS. So Apple has two choices: modify the A18 Pro's memory controller, or only ship this with 8 gigs that's non-upgradable and only offer storage upgrades. Personally, I'm hoping they go for an in-between option, 12 gigs of RAM, the same as the iPhone 17 Pro series. It's a perfect middle ground, plenty for macOS, future-proof enough for Apple Intelligence, and not overkill for a budget laptop. It just makes sense. There's also a world where Apple avoids all this and just drops the A19 Pro straight into this machine, which would solve the 8 gig limit instantly. But every current rumor still points towards the A18 Pro coming to this MacBook, so the most realistic outcome is this: Apple modifies the A18 Pro to support 12 gigs of RAM, and makes that the only RAM option and calls it a day. Clean, simple, no base model drama, and if you need more RAM, Apple will smilingly point you towards the AL Pro. But beyond RAM, there will be other compromises. No Thunderbolt support, meaning slow external drives and limited external display setups, GPU performance that sits well below M-series machines, and probably one classic Apple omission designed to nudge you up the ladder. Maybe no True Tone, maybe a single Type-C port, maybe even no Touch ID. Apple loves a gentle shove towards the pricier model. But for what this machine is designed to be, a colourful, ultra-portable, genuinely affordable entry point to macOS, these trade-offs are reasonable. This isn't a replacement for your M-series laptop, it's a Chromebook killer with a macOS badge. And yes, it's the kind of laptop that makes you feel like you're finally part of the Mac family without selling a kidney. The sales potential is massive. Digitimes estimates 5 to 7 million units annually, which could boost MacBook shipments by up to 40%. Considering the PC market has been flat for years, Apple entering the sub $700 segment is a big deal. And it gives them a way to hook younger users into macOS earlier, instead of sending them to Windows laptops or Chromebooks simply because of price. It's basically Apple's Trojan horse, but it comes in bright pink. We've seen Apple dabble in budget Macs before: the white polycarbonate MacBooks, the iBook, the 12-inch Retina MacBook, but none of these really truly hit budget pricing. This new A18 MacBook finally could. And the knock-on effect? The iPad suddenly has competition. The iPad has always been Apple's answer to "I want a cheap computer," but a $599 to $699 MacBook with a built-in keyboard, proper desktop apps, full file management, and actual macOS multitasking? Yeah, the base iPad might be sweating a little, but Apple doesn't mind cannibalizing its own lineup if it keeps users in the holy ecosystem. So where does all of this leave us? Apple's low-cost A18 MacBook is shaping up to be the most interesting Mac launch for me since the M1. Colourful, portable, actually affordable, and powered by a chip that's far more capable than people would expect. It won't compete with the MacBook Air, but for hundreds less, it doesn't need to. So let me know, would you buy a MacBook with an iPhone chipset if it saved you $300 to $400? Or does an M-series chipset still feel like the minimum for a proper Mac experience? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, hitting subscribe and tapping the hype button really helps a small channel like mine. There's a lot more coming as Apple gears up for one of its busiest years ever. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.